Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to take a look at the Parameter Jammer from the BIM project suite and just make sure you know how the tool works, and we'll take you everything. We'll just take you through it, and got a couple of different examples we're going to show today and make sure you understand how the tool works. But before we get too far into it, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions using the questions panel if you're attending the live web presentation. I will be monitoring that and will answer them as I go. And if I miss anything or if something comes in late, I will make sure to answer those at the end. And if you are watching the recorded version on our YouTube channel, please use the comments section below. We monitor those as well, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. With that said, let's just jump right into the presentation. Now, as many of you are probably aware of, getting a good content library put together, a good family library put together, takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we spend a lot of time and many hours getting that put together. However, we can't get everything always, right? There's always something that's needed. It's a piece of furniture, it's another door, it's a manufacturer air terminal or rooftop unit. Various reasons why someone would need a custom piece of content for a project. And we don't always have the time to build it, certainly not always in the time frame that our teams need them. And sometimes they don't even ask, right? So content is everywhere online. There's dozens of different places to go, whether it's the manufacturer's website or one of the websites where they just give out a bunch of free stuff. And you can subscribe to these things. You can pay for content online. There's various ways to get access to stuff. Generally speaking, though, when that happens and non-corporate content gets downloaded and used in the projects, issues tend to start arising. And specifically, schedules have empty fields that cannot be edited, right? That's kind of the biggest issue that we're going to talk about today. And there's a couple of ways to address it. One way is to add a bunch of project parameters or to your project potentially, or set up your shared parameters that come in to work with all categories, right? And then it's effectively added as a project parameter. We don't necessarily want that because too many project parameters causes its own issues. The other way is to take the time and edit the family and put the proper parameters in. And at that point, since you're under the hood, you start reassociating things, and it just becomes a time suck and more of a headache than it needs to be. Now, so that's where Parameter Jammer comes in. Parameter Jammer, and you'll find this out today, can help get the parameters from your schedules into the families that need them, so that those fields can be edited. And then there are other things that we can do beyond that to kind of standardize that content for your firm if necessary. And I'll point those out here in a moment. So for today, for those of you that are not familiar with Parameter Jammer, we're just going to show you where it is, how to get your hands on it, and a quick introduction to the interface and such. It's not a big app. It's a very powerful app, but there's not a lot to it. So it's pretty straightforward, thankfully. And show you how to set it up, how it works, update some content, update in our projects, and that'll pretty much wrap it up for today. It's nice and sweet today. And this one's best suited to be shown live in Revit. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I've got two different examples to show off today. We're gonna do one with some architectural families, and I got some with a couple of mechanical families, an MEP project. All right, now we'll start off with the architectural model here, and the Parameter Jammer utility as part of the CTC BIM project suite which is found on the CTC Productivity tab. It is a licensed tool and shows up right kind of in the middle of the darker green shaded tools, okay? And when you open it up, there's not a lot to it. What it's going to do is it scans your project, and it's going to present a list of all of the schedules over here. So the schedules on the left is what you're going to see. On the right side here, once we set it up, it's going to list all of the families that are currently being reported by that schedule. Then all I have to do is check a box for that, and we'll get to that in a moment. I guess the biggest piece here is this field right here, the specification of a shared parameter file. Now, if you've taken the time and the effort to build out a bunch of custom families for your firm, whether it's doors and furniture and casework, or it's mechanical equipment, air terminals, rooftop units, plumbing fixtures and equipment, like it doesn't matter. You'll likely have a shared parameter file for that because there are specific ways you want your parameters labeled, specific unit types and how things are going to be measured, and the list goes on, right? Certain ways you want to enter data in, whether it's by a unit type or by text or whatever the case. So you'll have one somewhere, and you'll need to know where that is so you can specify it in this list. Now, hopefully, you can use just your kind of Office Master parameter file, and you're not dealing with one on a project by project basis, because that tends to overcomplicate things, in my opinion. So I've already got mine pathed here, but if I didn't, I would just hit browse and go find it. Okay. And once you've done that, if the wrong one was pathed here first, for example, or in a brand new setup, maybe this path to your user profile, for example. Once you've mapped this, because it's already listing the schedules here, you would hit this refresh button. And what it's going to do is do a quick little rescan on it and make sure that the two are kind of linked together and jiving properly. All right, now for this to work, we have a couple of different ways to do this. You have the opportunity here, if your schedule list is getting a little long, to run a quick little filter to dial it in a little bit more to find your schedules a little bit easier, right? So if you were looking at doors specifically, you could type in door. Here's a list of all the door schedules in your project. If you were looking for equipment, you could start typing in equipment, and there you have it, right? Or maybe you're on a mechanical project, which is my other example. You type in GRD or something like that, right? It'll start to populate that list for you. Once you have what you need, to check the box. On the right side is where you'll get a list of all of the families that appear in that schedule. And what you can do is start to find the family that you want to work with. And maybe it's 1, maybe it's 8. Check the box for those. Okay. And that's how you determine which families are going to get updated. Now, before I do this, and I'll just do this. When I hit next, it'll bring you to, it's going to scan the data in the families, and you can check as many families as you need to. The more families you check, the more scanning it has to do. Now, I picked one that's working, just so you can kind of see what that might look like. And maybe you run into an issue where you changed a parameter in the schedule, and for whatever reason, there's umpteen different reasons something like that would happen. And maybe you just need to remap a parameter, and that's fine. That kind of thing happens sometimes. But really, it's this down here where I've got a door that isn't my door, and I've got a bunch of fields that aren't scheduling properly. And here I can map those accordingly as an instance parameter or a type parameter, or choose a specific one from my shared parameter file. Which is, so basically I can add it as a type, and then it's going to pull it from the shared parameter file and add it to my project as a type property. If I were to say pick frame finish, it's going to use what's there and try to make it happen. Or you can just set it to do not include if it's something you're not worried about. So before I do that though, I'm going to back out. I'm going to hit clear. I'm going to back out. I'm going to close this out because I want to switch to my schedule view first. I forgot to do that. The reason why I want to switch to this is because this is where a bunch of the doors in this project can't in the schedule. They show up in the schedule, right? Because a lot of them are just your standard width, height, thickness parameters, right? Those are kind of built-ins. We use those as much as we possibly can. But then there's a bunch here for panel type, panel material, panel finish, frame type, material finish that can't be touched right now. And there's a number of them that are experiencing that. And that is because these families aren't using the same parameters as these others. And to determine what those are, you can always select that field, hit highlight, and it'll bring you right to it if you've got the view open, or it'll try to find it and open it. And sure enough, like this is a generic door. I think this one might actually be one of those out-of-the-box Autodesk doors, to be honest. But it's just super basic. There's not a lot here. Certainly not the parameters that I'm working with. Here's the panel material and stuff, but it's not the ones that are my schedule is using. So to make that happen, we're just gonna execute it here real quick, okay? And I believe a couple of these doors are the same here, or exhibiting the same issue. So from the CTC productivity tab, we'll open up Parameter Jammer again, and we're just going to run through this with that door. Now, if I grab that schedule again, and it was these two doors, or one of these two doors was the one I just had selected. But this will work on any door that's not yours. It'll work on curtain panels that are set to be a doorway. Just about anything that is part of that door category in this case. And really, yeah, so, and then I can hit next. So it's gonna scan it again. It's gonna present the list of parameters. And now I can do my job. So here, I can set the frame material parameter to be frame material and panel material to be panel material. And if I want, I can set it to something else. You know, maybe it needed to be something else for whatever reason. Panel finish is missing. So I'm going to add this as a, let's go as an instance. And actually, I want to use, yeah, let's do that. And then for finish, we'll add as instance as well up here. And these were automatically mapped because the names match. And that's kind of why I didn't have to touch anything. Then there's thickness and width and height. Those aren't being included because those are built-ins. We couldn't touch them anyway. There's also an appears in schedule property that is part of my other door families, and that's so that I can control the visibility of some of the nested components and things of that nature. So in this case, since this door doesn't have that, I could force it to say do not include, or maybe I did want to exclude it from a schedule at some point. I can go ahead and add that property as I see fit. It's really kind of up to you how you want to handle that. And then I would just go on down the line here and do the same thing down here. Let's grab frame finish there. Well, which one did I do up here? I already forgot. Add as type. Okay, let's do that. And then here for panel finish, I could set that as an instance as well. And if at any point I wanted to exclude something, you can just change it. Now, in some cases, right, there's a bunch of, there may be a dozen or so extra parameters, and we'll see this in my next example, that maybe don't apply because they're helping control filters or sorting or whatever the case may be, or they're just there but hidden for some reason. You can basically force anything that doesn't include a mapping already and just say don't include, or force feed them all to be a type property. And we'll see that in a moment. So if I hit next, at this point, it's going to do the work for me. So it's processing both families, and it's taking the parameters found in the schedule and what I told it to do, and it's pushing them into the families themselves. It's not adding project parameters to the project. It's doing the push for me. Now, I didn't grab, there it goes. It just took a second to refresh. So now my materials are starting to show up. So because some of these were already predefined and it mapped them accordingly, I didn't have to define those. So that's one really slick way of quickly updating the schedules with some of this content. If the parameter name's the same, but they differ in the GUID or the unique identifier of the family, or the parameter, I should say, then in that mapping process, it'll update that for us automatically. So that was really slick. I still get to go ahead and update the finishes, but you notice here now I can change these, right? These used to be just stock text properties, or they were dead. Basically, I couldn't change anything. And well, apparently there's something missing in that row there. So let's do, I can just choose from the list then. And there it is. I think I had an extra space in the front or something. There we go. So I can start typing that in. And these are now editable fields in my schedules, which is slick, super great, makes it really easy to run through this list of broken, or I shouldn't say broken, but doors that aren't scheduling the way they should be. And I can just get them mapped. Then in the properties of that family, if I go back to the floor plan here, and let's say grab this door, here's my panel finish parameter, brand new. Here's my frame finish, also brand new. These didn't exist before. But if I were to go check out, say, my project parameters, frame finish doesn't show up. Panel finish also shouldn't show up. And that's because that's not how they're being added. If I were to edit this door family, those parameters are now in the door family. And I can save that family into my library and know that the next time it gets used on some other project, as long as they load it from our library, it's going to schedule. Now, it's not smart per se, right? I didn't link up parameters to, say, the dimensions to help control the family, or to the actual geometry to physically control what the finish really is. It's just kind of pseudo-intelligent data that is added to the family. So it's not the process in which you would turn this into your permanent family. There's a couple other steps that are needed to kind of complete that process if you wanted to use this again in the future. And we'll talk about that briefly, because we have there's a couple other YouTube videos that I'm going to discuss or point out that can help with that. So yeah, and then anywhere these show up, or anytime I've created a new schedule at this point, that those doors are going to show up properly. And that works with any category of schedule that has families in it. So my specialty equipment, generic models, doors, windows, casework, furniture systems. I mean, the list goes on. Example 2 here is this one. Now, and this happens rather frequently, where you're a mechanical and you're doing your designs, and then at some point it's decided the manufacturer in which we're going to be grabbing content from or utilizing for this project, say Price or Ruskin or Titus or McQuay or whomever, right? There's plenty of places where we can go. Lots of those places already have Revit families that you can go and download from their website. None of them are standardized amongst each other, right? They all have their own setups and their own parameters and their own way, scheduling techniques, I guess. So, and those will all differ from what we're doing. Now, to make this again work is this. So if I go to my schedule here quick, here's a couple Ruskin louvers that I've loaded in, and they show up here, but all of those parameters are uneditable, right? I can't touch them. There's even another one down here, this Micrometal diffuser. Some of these are editable, which means someone went through the process and started linking a few things up, but didn't do all of them, right? Like I can't touch thickness where I can on some of these other ones. So we're going to use Parameter Jammer to update some of these families here quick. Now, if I go ahead now and open Parameter Jammer again, same shared parameter file, I'm not changing it. And now I get to go find the proper schedule here. So this is where that filter comes in handy, where I can just start typing in GRD or maybe I want to, which pulls this up right here. Actually, it's in my list because of the GR. If I would have said D, it would have gone too far. But this is the schedule that I want to use. Now, here's a bunch of parameters that are present that are, I'm sorry, these are the families. So here's my Ruskin family there, and where did it go? It was here a minute ago. Oh, is it this one? I think it's that one. Well, we're about to find out. I think it's that one. The Ruskin one's the one I care about, really. So, and if I type that in now, scanning the families, this one takes a little bit longer because I'm dealing with a lot more parameters. And I'll show you in a moment why. Well, here you go. Now, this is where potentially you could have a lengthy list of mappings to do, even more so than what your schedule visually shows. That's what's happening here, right? So there's a number of different things happening kind of in the background of the schedule that may or may not apply here. So if I want to make sure that I can map up and edit some of these things, then I can go ahead and start inputting those parameters. So for example, there is, I'm just going to work my kind of way down the list here. We have border application. So we're going to set that as instance or type. It doesn't matter. You know, depends on how you want to make your adjustments. In this case, it looks like most of these are probably type parameters because we're totaling up quantities here. So adding as a type is probably a safe bet in this case. Deflection type we'll need, so I'll grab that and switch it to add as a type instead. There are a few, so I'm not going to hunt and peck all of them down, but the finished description I think is what I want there for that one. And we'll grab a couple more. I think product type is this, and product material is that one, and that might just be enough for me today. And then, so this one's already been mapped up, and you can see a number of them were already done. There was only one or two that I couldn't really mess with, and it's not even in the list, which means that tells me it's not even a shared parameter. It doesn't exist in the shared parameter file. It's probably just added some other way, but it certainly wasn't a shared property, which is what this is working with. Everything else that I'm not touching, we can set to do not include. And to do that, you would forcefully hit set. If you did want to just blindly add them all, and you knew I need to add some of these things that aren't, and you didn't want to manually pad through it all, you could just say add them all as a type, hit set, and whatever you didn't manually set yourself will automatically get set to add as type. So if I go ahead now and hit next, it's going to scan and start doing the work. Now, so I should be able to start editing some of these fields once it's done processing. It's taking a little bit longer again because we're mapping more stuff and dealing with more instances of content potentially. That is done. And there we go. So spacing updated immediately because it's a dimensional property and it has to have something. But like deflection type here, now I can start going ahead and typing in what I want. And I'll just grab adjustable from the list there because someone used it before. Because I set it as a type property, we'll get my messages. And then I can keep on keeping on. There you have it. And that's the beauty of this. And again, it's not a project parameter. That's not what we're doing here. These are strictly family parameter. They're being added to the physical families now. And again, I think I mentioned this in the properties, but if I were to say edit this family now, you'll see that. And that's the point. And that's what this tool is supposed to do, is turn around and add these to the family so that you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go through the exercise of manually adding deflection type or other finished descriptions and things of that nature, right? Appears in schedule. That's all happening for you. The app is doing it. Now, at this point, if you wanted to go ahead and finish the process, right? It's not just a one-time thing where I need to make my schedules work, right? I want this to actually be more of a permanent fix. You're going to want to head out to our YouTube channel for either Parameter Jammer or Family Processor. And now Family Processor from the Manager Suite helps you reassociate parameters. So if you had a parameter in there called deflection and you wanted to now be deflection type, because that's what we're using in the schedule, you can use Family Processor to find deflection and replace that with deflection type. And if you had one family, if you had 50 families that needed to happen to, you could apply it to all 50 families at the same time. And that's kind of the process that you would go through if you wanted to do it. You would use Parameter Jammer to update your project and get that running. Then you can say, save the families out, or use Family Exporter to export those families to a folder. Then use Family Processor to update all of those so that the next project, you don't have to do any of that. It's already done and it will already work in your schedules because we know that's the right parameter. So, and we do have videos on that. You can click the videos button there from each and every single app. Has a link to our YouTube channel for the videos. You could also just go to YouTube /ctcsoftware.com or CTC Software, sorry, which is this, and effectively search for either Parameter Jammer or Family Processor. And we'll do that. And you can start to see what else is here. Now, I should have typed in Jammer. Now, this one is just a rehash from 18 years ago. It must not be in my playlist, but it's probably in this Bin Project Suite playlist here where you have access to all of this, all the good stuff, but don't play it, the whole thing, because it kind of ties into both. So you can either find it in the Project Suite playlist or the Manager Suite playlist, but we have all dozens and dozens of videos up here on our YouTube channel. You'll certainly find the video that you're looking for in this case to help you with that process. And then there's some other stuff in here on how to update your schedules with Schedule Parameter Resolver or various other things. So there's a bunch of stuff here that you can get access to. So that does it. That takes care of it. Like I said, it's a pretty simple, I shouldn't say simple. It's a pretty powerful tool that's easy to use, and that's the whole point. And that's what we were trying to do with this one. So hopefully you guys can see how this would benefit you as far as getting a custom family or a non-corporate or non-company specific family to quickly and easily get updated so that it works in your schedules without having to pollute it with a bunch of project parameters. And again, if you want more information on how to complete the cycle, go check out the videos for Family Processor and Parameter Gemmer combined. There's a nice little workflow for that and how that all works. And I can put a link in the description below for the YouTube channel, so you'll get that when you see it. But with that said, I want to thank you all for joining me. That takes care of it for today. And it's been a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.